Hello, and welcome to the Thread to Mend podcast. I am Taylor, coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland, and I am in another corner of my home right now. This is my kind of tiny room. It's like a closet-sized room in our house where I store my drum carder and my dresser of yarn, things like that. You can sort of see behind me here I have my long-term crochet Afghan project sort of laid out, so that's where I just keep that while it's being worked on. I don't have much to show you today, mainly because I recorded only last week, but I find that I so much look forward to doing this on a Tuesday or Wednesday morning before I head into work. It kind of makes me feel like I'm part of a community, even though for the most part it's just me and the internet, it seems. But I wanted to show you what I've been working on. So I have been hustling on this sweater for Abby, and it's almost done. I have like 5 rows to knit before I cast off, but I just this morning I like trimmed my hair and I had a shower, and then after I shower I kind of practiced like a little bit of self-care, drying my hair towards the scalp, like putting on makeup because I was thinking of recording. So that's another thing I like about recording this podcast, is it inspires me to practice a little bit of grooming, which I don't always do, or as much as the average person does, I guess. Anyway, back to the sweater. So it's lumpy and bumpy because it's not yet blocked. All you knitters out there know this, but if you're new to knitting or you're not a knitter, things look a little wonky, especially with color work, until you wet it the first time and you kind of stretch it out and move it around. So that's what's up. Also, this sweater in some parts is worked with 3 colors together, so that makes the overall fabric a bit thicker than something knit with just a single color throughout. So this sweater is like crazy warm. I mean, obviously I haven't worn this sweater, but I think that's why my Icelandic version was like so toasty. It's that you have in some parts 3 layers of wool covering your chest. So I wasn't originally, when I bought the yarn, I bought it online. I bought it through Knit Picks. It's the colored yarns are wool of the Andes and the white, and then the body yarn, the main color, is like an undyed version of wool in the Andes. They call it their eco wool in the description, but I forget the title of it. I forget the name of the yarn, but if you go to their website and you search worsted weight, you're going to see that there are just natural colors and full 100-gram skeins. So I actually had to crack into my 4th skein of the body main color, and I only bought 3 per sweater, so I bought 2 extra skeins just because I saw that it said low quantity on their website and I didn't want to run out of yarn in my 2nd sweater without being able to buy it again. So I might end up with an extra skein, in which case maybe I'll knit some like matching socks or something. I don't know, some like boot socks just to use it up, because I don't think I'm not yet so much a shawl person, which I'm going to get into, but I don't feel like I'm a one skein shawl person, if that makes any sense. I feel like if I wear a shawl, I want it to be more dramatic than a single skein. Anyway, tangent, this is the sweater. Again, it's almost done, and I bought the yarn online, back to what I was saying, and of course when you see yarn online, you don't quite see it the same as you would in person, so it might have a different contrast next to another color, or you can't always put the little squares of color in your cart directly together to see what it looks like. So when I received the brown, which I was going to use in a contrast color, as a contrast color similar to this for Kelly's sweater, I thought online that it would have a different hue or opaqueness in color to the main color of her sweater. Anyway, this color didn't arrive as much as to my expectations. And I ended up working it in Abby's sweater, and at first I was like, oh no, I should go back, I should tink back 3 rows or two rows and just not finish this color, because I don't know, as soon as I got through that, I was like, ooh, this is warm and this is cool, and do I want to go there and mix the two? And I'm so much of a warm colors person. I was afraid I was kind of like taking over this concept I have for someone else's style with my own style, but also I'm making it, and it's like a piece of my art, so you know, how much do I put myself into this if it's for someone else, but I'm making it? These are the thoughts I was having. And as soon as I got through the yellow, I was like, okay, this is like so much me right here. These warm kind of 70s like hues. And I already did the sleeves, where you see that it's like, let's show you the knot on the other side. You know, it's blue, white, and gold. So it's kind of like nautical looking, which isn't bad. It's just, and I don't know, I mean, their parents like spend time on water. They're not like sailor nautical type people. Anyway, so I was like not sure that I was gonna like this brown with the blue, because the blue, you might not see it, and I don't know how well I can really capture color today from this window, but it is a very bright, it's like the brightest navy you've ever seen. It's not really navy. It looks navy on camera, but I like the way it's coming together. Like, I think I'm gonna, I already did it. I finished the 3 color product. 3 little dot rows. If you were to follow with the colors I used in the chart, this repeat here would have been this color, which of course, like, you can always take liberty with color charts and picking your contrast colors, but I did the yellow again because I feel like I wanted to kind of come back to the sleeve, right at the top, so it's sort of full circle, and then I won't be kind of like exaggerating the thing I wasn't sure of, right? So it kind of reminds me of like that show, it's like cooking show where you have a basket of like odd things and you have to make a dish with all the things, and the people are like, what do I do with this thing? And then they make the whole dish around that thing when it could just be like the tiniest bit added as like an essence. Anyway, this is my essence color. This is the essence of me in this sweater. That you know, I don't know why I would never choose blue, but I just never go towards blues. I guess mostly because like I'm a greens person and I want everything to go to green, and for some reason when I choose like my spectrum, I'm always looking towards the warmer side, towards green. So I'll go with like greens and golds, greens, golds, and orange with red or pink or something to kind of round that end of the spectrum, and then I leave off the like blues and purples and the cooler colors. So like blues and greens I'm not a super fan of. I don't know why. Like even behind me, like that image is all those colors I was mentioning, and I had no idea while I was saying that. But yeah, okay. So this is all I've been working on, obviously, since we last met. But I remember mentioning last week, like, all I have on my needles is blah, 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 and I completely, like, ignore projects that are on my shelf up here just because they're not in my basket downstairs. And I haven't stitched a bit of this project, but I don't want to ignore it either. It, like, lives inside of my heart all day because I want to come back to it, but I simply just don't have the brain power right now. It's like, you know, the days are getting shorter, and I have so much knitting planned that has a deadline that this is like, I don't like to use the term selfish knitting because this is sort of my coping skill. Like, it's not selfish to cope with reality. When I need to cope with reality, I sit down and I knit. So I'm trying to flick those threads. Anyway, I have never knit with a 2-ply fingering weight yarn before this project. I can say that. Definitely a bunch of 4-ply fingering weight. And I guess because it's so like delicate and light, it is strikingly different. Like it feels so good. Like I can totally understand why people knit shawl after shawl with stuff like this. And brioche is so much fun. Like, I mean, there's so many things going on in this pattern, and it's just so beautiful the way that it works up. Like I would love to just knit my own brioche design. Like just do a doodle and figure out how to make it happen. I wish I could stretch this out to its like fullest capacity, but then it would start to sort of slip off my needles. I guess if I put little ends on the tips, I could do that. And this is not yet finished, obviously, it's still on there, but the last section I've done, I think I'm about 1.5 repeats out of 3. So, and then there's a next section that's sort of the trim. So this is probably going to be it's probably about 2/3 of the way there, or like 1/2 of the way there. Definitely 1/2 of the way there in knitting, because you have a lot more stitches per row towards the bottom than the top, but in volume and size. And then it'll stretch out and block much bigger. This is just a 2-skein project, and I've shown it to you before, but I'm going to show you the colors again because I just missed this so much. This is Tempting You Yarns, which is dyed and sold here in Baltimore. It's a local to me yarn. I bought it at the Frederick Fiber Festival, and it was just my favorite purchase that day, and the first time I ever bought a 2-ply fingering weight yarn. I've been gifted it and it sat in my drawer, but this is the first time I'm working with it. You can tell it's kind of like a goldy yellow, but there's flecks of like amber, and it's a silver sparkle. I love the sparkle. Like I'm thinking about buying like 10 skeins of bare sparkle 2-ply yarn just to like make my own dye experiments and do another shawl, because this yarn I did dye, and it was an over dye of a very popular dyer. It was originally lighter than this. It was very white with silver sparkle and then lime green speckles. Not really speckles as much as like muted kind of watercolory type speckles. And then I over dyed it with a little bit of ochre, I think mostly throughout. There might have been some other colors I mixed in there. And it was originally silver sparkle, just like this one, but the ochre dye, or whichever color I used, I can't remember now, completely over dyed the sparkle, so it's like gold, which is nice because this is a really warm color. And I think that the warm and the cool of these tones really play off each other really well, which you can see in the project. One thing that I was not expecting for some reason is that these patterns of brioche with all the kind of doodles, they don't translate the same as like 1x1 kind of brioche. Like you can see it, it's like a neat pattern, but it's a different pattern. It's like wavy lines and dots in between. So it's less reversible than I imagined, but I like the light on top of dark. It's like a shadow behind it, or background and foreground. So this still lives, just not inside my hand. Inside my hands? Yep. Not within the grasp of my hands. Yeah, I'm recording this briefly before I go into work. And one other thing I was thinking of bringing up as a subject to discuss is, like, hands. Like, we work with our hands a lot. Like, I sat down over this weekend and knit for 2 days, all day, until I had a heating pad on my shoulders. And my hands, although my shoulders and my neck were kind of getting a little sore from just like, you know, you develop poor posture, and you kind of like, just sitting upright is like undoing it. It's kind of taxing on the body. But for some reason, well, I know the reason, but my hands are not hurting. Like, my hands do not hurt. And when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with junior rheumatoid arthritis. I couldn't, like, reach into my desk and pick up a book and pull it out. Like, the weight of a book on that joint was just excruciating, like, really painful. I mean, I've never borne a child, but the most pain I've probably experienced. So when I was a teenager, I was always afraid, like, oh, you know, if I do too much with my hands, like, they might start to hurt, or I might not be able to do as much because my hands might start to hurt. And other than, like, less stress in my life and a somewhat better diet, you know, that pain has gone away. I don't know, you know, for a lot of people it does. Like, half people with junior rheumatoid arthritis never have it as an adult. But I was always weary of, like, it maybe coming back or something aggravating my joints. So even for a normal person, which I do consider myself, I don't deal with that pain, so I don't categorize myself as, like, in that spectrum of, like, arthritis yet. But a physical asana yoga practice has helped me so much with developing strength in my hands. So anytime you're in a posture where your hands are on the floor and part of your foundation supporting the weight of your body, you want to cultivate this activation throughout the whole hand that supports that weight. So it's really easy to kind of just plant your hands on the floor, you know, with your feet, and allow your weight to kind of sit in the joint of your wrist, and kind of, like, dig down there. But what you really want to do to cultivate that strength, because what you're doing is you're just laying the weight into your bones. You're using the structure of your bones to support you, which is half of the way there. You really want to use your whole body. So you're bringing together the structure of your bones. So your bones should be in a particular, you know, alignment. But then on top of that, you want to introduce sometimes a force of opposition through the musculature. So, you know, you plant your hands down on the ground in something like a downward facing dog or a tabletop position, or even, like, in child's pose. You can, if you're not, you know, wanting to completely take rest, you can cultivate this awareness even in a resting pose, where you're pressing down through all of your knuckles, right? So if you're kind of double jointed in some fingers like me, you want to be mindful, you know, not to press down, like, with so much intensity that you're kind of locking out your joints, but you're pressing down firmly through the pads of your palm, so not just the wrist, but the pads of your palm, your thumb, and also your fingertips, so that you can really activate the musculature of your hands, strengthening those muscles. And then, you know, you're also increasing flexibility because you're not just contracting, right? We're not just making fists and getting tense and tight. You don't really build, it's not about strength as much as it is, like, suppleness and stability. Without stability, like, when you build a building, like, you want it to have some flexibility to flow with the wind. You kind of want that same concept with your muscles. You don't want them rigid and stuck, and sometimes people confuse that with strong. You want this stability that's flexible but also strong. It can hold its shape when it needs to, and it can relax and not be contracted all of the time, so chronically tense. Anyway, you want to press down through your pads of your palm, your fingertips, and activate through your hands. And this is called an energy lock. So hand lock, hasta bandha is the Sanskrit term. You want to create this ceiling of energy throughout your whole hands. And this has really helped me so much with my craft outside of the practice. And also, it's the foundation of you know, fun and exciting postures to learn. Like, when you're in a handstand, you have to have that energy lock down. And you have to be cognizant of the amount of flexion, extension rather, of your wrist. So, you know, you can overextend your wrist in very basic postures that you repeat again and again and again. Like in a chaturanga, your hands are under your elbows, right? So your hands are on the ground, your elbows are bent. You're here and you come into upward facing dog. If your shoulders are beyond your wrists, you're going to have too much extension here, and that can create wrist joint pain, like a carpal tunnel, or tendinitis too. People experience by repetitive movements where the structure of their bones, right, the bones of the upper arm relative to the hand, like they're not quite in the right alignment to maintain stability. Right, so you could create instability in the shoulder, or you could have instability in the shoulder girdle, wherever the shoulder sits structurally on your body in whichever posture, and that's going to have an effect on the wrist too. So keeping my hands feeling good in knitting is so supported by a solid practice of yoga, where I've developed strength through my hands, but then also through my shoulders. So they all work together. Our body is a freaking amazing machine that operates in ways I could never comprehend. And all of its parts work together. So structurally in our physical, like, gross body, and then also energetically in subtle ways that I'm not going to get into. But I wanted to share that in case it helps anyone. There's so many resources online with practicing yoga. If you're not able to like go to a studio and get out of your house to go do that, there's so many resources online. And yeah, okay, cool. So I'm going to keep this one short today because I do want to maybe get to finishing this before work, so I can just come home and start the sleeves tonight to the second sweater. I hope you are all well and that you didn't mind me going on a tangent ramble about yoga. And if that was helpful to you, let me know. If you have any experience with, wrist pain, hand pain, stuff like that as you knit, I could show you a little bit of hand exercises that work really well for me as like a support, as like a kind of rest break thing. But really building that strength in the musculature of your hands, your forearms especially. I mean, so much. Before my hands get sore, it's my forearm that gets tired. My muscles in my forearm get tired. So build that strength through stability. Okay, I'm gonna go. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Hit subscribe and like my video, and let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.